I'm going to take it away, Manny and Chris. Quick hello to all our customers and partners that just joined the call. This is our Accelerate Your App Migration and Modernization Wine Tasting brought to you by CDW Canada, our friends at VMware, and our friends at AWS. I'm Wes Taylor, manager in our product and partner management organization here at CDW Canada. And just a quick reminder that by now you should have received 3 pre-selected bottles of Wayne Gretzky Estate Winery wine to accompany you as our sommelier Rick guides you through the tasting experience. Before we get started with the tasting, please join me in welcoming Chris Tomic from the AWS team to get us started.
Perfect. Thanks, Wes. So and thanks everybody for joining here on this afternoon. Really appreciate it. I'm only going to take a couple minutes of your time before I pass it over to my colleague Manny. So on my side, Chris Tomiuk, I am the VMware Cloud on AWS Business Development Manager on the AWS side of the house, and I'm going to say just a couple words about the partnership and the alliance between AWS and VMware and our key partner CDW, of course, and then talk about, as Wes said, a little bit about app modernization, and then pass the baton over to Manny.
Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Yep. So, hey, Manny. So what I don't know if the folks on the phone, their level of familiarity is with VMware and AWS, but it really is the two giants, powerful forces coming together between the private cloud leader and the public cloud leader to jointly engineer a solution. And it's funny, I'll steal a tagline on one of my colleagues who always says one of the most interesting things about VMware and AWS is how boring it is, right? It's VMware rather than hosted on-prem, it's hosted in the AWS data center, and it just works. And I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek. It is the VMware software-defined data center hosted in AWS, but oftentimes we look at it as a way to do just a pure lift and shift to the cloud or some burst capacity from that standpoint. But one of the other key things it enables us to do, and what we're really going to double-click on today, is the ability to move and to create new apps leveraging containers and do app modernization, leveraging some of the advanced technologies that VMware can bring to the table. And that's a lot of times we look at it purely as a migration play or as a lift and shift play, but there's really more to it than that. And that's where key partners like CDW have expertise in this field and leveraging some of the VMware technology that we can bring to the table. So really excited to dive into that. And with that, Manny, I will pass it over to you to take the lead here.
No worries. Thank you, Chris. Hopefully everyone can see my screen okay.
Looks great.
Yep.
Thanks, Wes, and thanks, Chris. So I'm Manny Singh. I'm one of the solutions architects covering VMware Cloud on AWS. I'm based out of Toronto. I've been currently in this cloud role at VMware for about 18 months now. I came from a company called VCE, which was basically a company that we did data center in a box type solutions, where we were essentially transforming and modernizing data center operations for a lot of customers. I've got a background in sort of delivering large scale infrastructure projects within financial services and some of our healthcare customers. I was really excited to take this new role on in VMware because it really gave me an opportunity to play with some of the cloud native technologies around from an AWS perspective, but also change things up around how delivering infrastructure solutions before, where we were removing some of the complexities, but now I can take that to another level through a managed solution such as this. So it was, for me, a natural progression from what we're doing. And the purpose, I guess, of the conversation today is really kind of me walking you through some of the success stories that we've had with some of our customers around not only their motivations for cloud and what they're hoping to gain out of it, but some of the experiences through that migration, that transition and adoption of the new technologies and what they gained out of that from a business perspective as well. So let me just kind of run through this very quickly, just to level set with everyone. And I'd appreciate if I had some interaction just to let me know this makes sense. We're not going to take too long on this, literally 15 minutes or so. I'm hoping I can get some questions and a bit of interaction on this as well. So why cloud? So a lot of my customers really recognize the need to simplify their operations. The whole complexity of managing your infrastructure stack, hardware refreshes, code and currency updates is a challenge. The idea of consuming a technology rather than building it, right, resonates with a lot of people. So, most of you today don't build your own PCs, I'd imagine, right? You're consuming the infrastructure as well. And then from a low code perspective, modernize the way I'm developing my applications so that my developers really driving the consumption of infrastructure in an automated way. What that really leads to is really greater business agility. I want to develop new use cases, new customer interactions, and faster. Right now, it might take me. Right now, I might do 4 releases of my software cycle a year. I need to now do that 4 times a month, for example, to introduce more features faster. I can't do that if much of my IT dependency cannot move at the speed of the business needs. So that's also a driver for cloud. And finally, big data and analytics. I've got a ton of data and applications. I want to start consuming some of the services that AWS provides from an AI analytics data perspective. But how do I get my applications over there to start consuming those services without having to necessarily go through a refactoring exercise? That's really where we came in. So if I were to kind of profile some of my customers in this use case, right? So you have some businesses, going back 10 years ago, they went straight to cloud, took a very native approach. It's been a long, arduous journey for them, but they've had strong alignment and executive sponsorship in order to gain those efficiencies. The cloud market right now, especially in Canada, is really around about 15% of workloads being on cloud today. The other 80 or so percent still looks very traditional, running on top of VMware, right? Which leads to, how do you scale that first type of customer, those are the early adopters? This is the second type of customer. You picked your cloud, you've had some progress, but you've not gone as fast as you wanted. You've not gone as far as you perhaps wanted, right? And some of the costs as you've started to scale have become prohibitive, and there's been complexities around the technology stack as well. That's where the majority of our customers typically tend to sit, because they're existing VMware customers trying to figure out how to adopt the cloud. And then there's the third type of customer that hasn't started yet, right? They're interested in cloud. We've decided we're going to go cloud first, but we don't really know where to begin. So if you, as a customer profile, are a VMware customer today, and you're committed to kind of a cloud transformation approach, this is the solution for you. If you're, for example, net new born in the cloud, Wealthsimple, a Shopify, you probably wouldn't necessarily take this approach, right? So I just wanted to level set so we're all on the same page. I hope that makes sense with everyone before we carry on. So AWS has helped VMware in really re-architecting our software for the cloud era. The software stack that we're running in VMC on AWS, as Chris said, it's the VMware platform that you're used to and that you're familiar with today from a skills and existing investment perspective, but we've re-architected with AWS's help to run on the AWS platform. It's a huge collection of services that, both from our cloud native perspective, our traditional IaaS platform that many of you are familiar with, and our tools around that, such as security and cloud management. We've got that running in this platform, and the basic premise of the offering is that customers can pick up their applications and optimize and move them into VMC to start rebuilding those applications and consume native services. That's the basic premise around the platform and the offer as it stands today. So let's just dive into that just very quickly around what that delivers for our customers. So in just case it's not obvious, your traditional approach to kind of building your infrastructure is here. It takes time. There's a lot of complexity around that. Simply moving out of that particular consumption model onto VMC on AWS, you're collapsing a ton of complexity and you're simply consuming it as a service. That is typically, once we do the analysis, more cost effective than the traditional approach and leads to greater business agility, which is what most people want. And that's kind of how you achieve the low operations side of things. What do you do next from there is really start assessing your applications and deciding what do I do next with them? How do I take cost out? How do I improve security, etc. So, yeah, I would argue that for many people, excuse me, excuse me. Here we go. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second here. That's good. That's what happens when I stop and start sharing my screen again. So for most people, moving to SaaS is ultimately everyone's North Star. Consuming my software as a service is probably the most easiest and best outcome that I'm trying to achieve. We also recognize not all applications are going to be moving into the cloud. Think of your non-x86 workloads, your AS400s, your mainframes, etc. Those things are going to be around for a long time and for the foreseeable future, right? There's probably a roadmap around transformation for that. It's going to take quite some time. So in the meantime, the opportunity is really modernizing your operations and consumption of your platform by moving out the traditional data center process as much as possible. Once you're there, our data has proven by freeing up your time and resources in that traditional operating model, it really frees you up to start re-platforming and containerizing your applications. So we have a tool and a bunch of tooling and technology stacks that really support diving really deep into your applications, doing the analysis, dependency mapping, and really enabling that migration to a cloud native type architecture, right? And then at the same time, while you're looking to kind of improve your existing application landscape, we're supporting the ability using VMC as well as the native services to start building your net new applications in the cloud. So there's various motions happening at the same time when you adopt this platform. So first of all, getting out of the data center, and you build a pipeline where you're feeding applications from your on-prem into VMC. That in turn feeds a modernization and containerization strategy, as well as building your net new requests as they come in. I still need new apps, I still need new VMs, I still need new instances while I do this other stuff. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, so here's kind of the proof point for us, right? So if we look at traditional sort of IaaS in the public cloud versus VMware IaaS in the cloud, it's basic. Our basic premise is once we look at a TCO and shared persistent storage, networking, sales, and refactoring, VMC on AWS works out far more cost effective because you're essentially able to pick up what you already have and optimize it on the cloud. So think of kind of the enterprise support required to manage 2 different platforms, right? There's a saving there. Then some of the advanced security posture that you might be looking to add to protect yourself from ransomware and things like that, IDS, IPS protection, XDR solutions and things like that. Re-architecting those, the costs get higher versus some of the inbuilt features of the VMware Cloud platform. Operating system licenses. Because VMware is a Microsoft Smart partner, you can either support bringing your own licenses or working in conjunction with AWS and our own license regime. We can also nullify that as a additional cost to move your applications into the cloud. Now is the migration time. This is where we really kind of excel. Simply moving your applications as is and having to refactor them into native solutions takes time and money. And quite often doesn't necessarily translate to good business value. So all I've done is move to VM, and it took me 6 months to kind of re-architect it and make it highly available on a native architecture. What did I really achieve in doing that? If I can just simply move it as is and optimize its consumption, surely that makes more sense and there's greater value in doing that. So particularly at scale, the VMC solution makes a lot more sense. And then when we start doing the optimization of your applications and really kind of getting in there and reducing the amount of resources we need, we can actually improve availability and shrink the resources required for them to actually work. So hope that makes sense. I want to spend a few minutes just talking about some of the use cases that we actually see with many of our customers and just kind of give you a brief overview. So these are the typical popular ones that we've seen most engagement around. DR as a service. I think that's pretty obvious for a lot of people, right? Rather than buying a second data center and having all that equipment standing by doing nothing, I can DR to the cloud and consume on-demand resources. We've also got controls and product offerings where we can even guarantee and reserve compute resources should you need it as well. So that makes a lot of sense and is a really good, obvious use case for a lot of customers that are kind of looking for a place to start. Data center extension. Actually, I'll come on to that later because there's a really good use case in conjunction with CDW around that. Think of the idea as you just need some burst capacity on an on-demand basis for a cyclical business period. So we've got customers doing it for that reason. And we've also got other customers, again, with CDW, that are just getting out of the data center and really embracing the cloud-first mentality, shutting down their operations and being a cloud company. And then finally, the next generation apps. And I think that's probably the most valuable piece for you guys as an audience here, right? How can I stop building monolith applications? Monolith virtual machines are moving more towards containerized microservices-based apps, serverless and what have you. So I have a joint customer use case here between CDW and VMware. They're an education institution out west. Unfortunately, I couldn't disclose the name, but essentially they have a key student application that they want to move to SaaS. Really get out of the traditional IT problems of supplying enough resources to it. And it's kind of a 3-year journey for them to refactor that application and move it to a SaaS, because the way they've got it deployed right now has certain data models that are not compatible with the SaaS delivery model by the application vendor. So what we've done with this customer is we've got them out of the data center by literally picking up everything they have and move it to VMC on AWS today. And that was a huge benefit for them, because particularly the nature of the education institution was this particular app around September time gets absolutely hammered by students, coursework submissions, exams, and things like that, right? This is banner, so just to be very transparent here. So the banner as SaaS is going to be quite some way away. So what they're doing now is hosting that in VMC, and because of the demand, probably 3 times in the year, really peaks up. Rather than buying additional hardware that's not doing anything for most of the year, just to be able to be consumed for those peak periods, moving to VMC on AWS allowed them to really burst the resources and elastically scale the banner app for those peak use cases, and then bring it back down to an optimal time period, right? And all they really did was move the VMs as they are, optimize the usage, and then scale it out as and when they need to. So that added a lot of business agility for these guys, and essentially got them out of their tactical scenarios of having to deal with hardware upgrades, vSphere upgrades, etc. And now they can really focus on how do I get the data out of the banner deployment that they have on-prem and work with the banner with the vendor directly to start moving the data into the SaaS version. So that's really kind of what they're at. And again, working with CDW in conjunction with the customer, CDW has that trusted relationship and provides a lot of services, leveraging a lot of their own tools and practices and methodologies supported by us and AWS to really take the customer on that journey. Now, for when you're not looking at consuming SaaS type offerings, The other piece I wanted to share with you is this puzzle would be the Kubernetes capabilities that comes with VMC on AWS. So it's not just the IaaS piece in terms of running VMs. It also comes with something we call Tanzu services, which is essentially our containerized offering. So being able to run Kubernetes on the same infrastructure stack as your VMs. Why is that important? Why don't I just run them on native? Well, there's a couple of reasons right now. If your administration teams are not necessarily familiar with the cloud native architectures and technologies, this gives them a really good stepping stone. Essentially, we're giving a GUI front end for Kubernetes, so that if you get given some apps that you need to run, you can run those on the same platform as your VMs. So it's very much a shared environment. And our initial kind of analysis of a TCO really proves out at scale, running containers on VMC on AWS works out more effective than just running them on native, because you're not needing to build out those native expertise at such an exponential scale. However, that being said, it does make sense in some scenarios to still build out on top of native platforms, such as when you need real sort of spin up, spin down agility. You need to do very utilitized billing units. So again, the claim here isn't that this is a solution entirely for, against native services around containers. No, it's really an additional option and a way for you guys to really modernize your application portfolio right now and start introducing containers and consuming them in a really effective way that brings portability of both the VMs and portability of the containers. So if that's important to you, then this is really the solution. Just to wrap up as well. So just again, level set the summary. VMC on AWS is going to be the easy button to the cloud. Move your apps as they are and optimize them. We're going to be faster and more successful versus traditional approaches of trying to develop and move on to native. And this is a migration methodology is fully endorsed and jointly supported by Amazon. So I'm going to kind of pause it there if there's any questions, or do we move straight into the wine?
Great job, Mandeep.
All right, Rick, it sounds like it's over to you.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Jeremy, how's it going, bud? Jeremy, you have a question?
Accidentally did that. Sorry about that.
No worries. Good to hear from you, bud.
Nice presentation.
All right, Rick, I think it's your turn.
All right, are we ready to go? Okay, so folks, how are we all doing today? Oh, I can see a lot of, okay, well, here's what we're going to do then. We're just going to start off then with the Pinot Grigio. All right, and the first thing I want you to do is we're actually going to pour it into our glass. Just like so. Okay, I'm going to give everyone a little bit of time to actually get their glass ready. All right. If I can get you guys just to put on your video so I can see your faces, that'd be perfect. That way I know who's ready and who's not. There we go. We'll just give the last stragglers a few more minutes, a few more seconds. Okay, all right, well then let's get started. All right, there are actually 4 things that we look at when we're trying to taste wine, okay? There's the way it looks, the way it tastes, the way it smells, and the way it feels, okay? Those are the 4 things that we're actually, this in layman's terms, I mean, there's other ways of describing it, but I found the most easiest way to describe it that way. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our glass of wine, and we're going to hold it up to the light at a 45-degree angle. Okay? And we're going to try and look through it and see what kind of colors we see. Okay? For me, when I'm looking at it this way, I'm seeing it's a very nice light pale yellow in the Pinot Grigio, right? And with my experience, that basically tells me this is going to be a very light tasting wine. It's not going to be too oaky. It's not going to be too, and basically when you're looking at it this way, what you're trying to do is you're trying to guess what it's actually going to taste like. All right, did someone have a question? Sorry, Marvin, I can't hear you.
No, that's my bad. I just went off mute.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay.
When you look at the color and you see that very pale yellow color,
Yes.
what would be a color indicative of a wine that was oaky or would have a stronger flavor, other than it being a red, like within the white range?
That's actually a really good question. Basically, for a white wine, if you look through it and you see that it's more opaque and it's got a little bit more of a darker golder color, then you can tell that it has a little bit more of an oaky influence to it. So you're gonna be able to taste a little bit more oakier. This one here, you can see it is a golden color, but it's not like a deep dark brownish color. So it is actually more clear, and you can actually see right through it when you're actually looking through it. So that tells me it was in the oak barrel, but not for a very long period of time. Right, now I got a question for you. Are you guys drinking the Founders series, or is it the Signature series, Pinot Grigio? Does anyone know? Can someone show me the bottle that they're... Because for me, I'm using the Signature series, and I'm hopeful that you guys are using the Signature series as well. Yes? Oh, anyway, it doesn't really matter. They're very similar wines. One is a little bit more oakier than the other one. Okay, yeah, so you are using the Signature series. Perfect. Okay, so we've taken a look at it. We know what it looks like. The next thing we're going to do is how it smells. So what I want you to do is actually a lot of people put their nose right on it, and then they're going to get a lot of the flavor come right up into their nose. What I want you to do is actually put it underneath your chin, just right at your chin, and then take a sniff of it that way. All right? This will give you the bouquet of the wine, but it won't overwhelm you. So do that, and then after you get that first sniff, then you go into it with your nose. And if you notice the big difference between the first smell and the second smell, you get a little bit more intense of a intense smell when you're actually doing it. And basically what you're doing with wine, when you're taking a look at the color, and then you're taking a look, and then you're taking a little bit of a sniff of it, what you're doing, your mind is actually trying to guess what that wine is going to taste like. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually take a wine, and I'm going to see if I can lower my screen a bit here. I'm going to put it on the ground, and I'm just going to swirl it a bit. Right, this process is called aerating the wine, and what we're doing is we're just sort of getting a little bit more of the oxygen into the wine and increasing the smell. Okay, so now what I want you to do is take your nose and just go over it again, and you're going to notice a little bit more of an intense smell. All right, does anyone want to guess what this wine is going to taste like? Feel free to unmute and just give me a guess. Anyone? Oh, we're all a bit shy.
Sure.
Okay, well, anyway, what we're going to do next is we're actually going to give it a little bit of a taste. Now, one thing that's interesting about wine, a lot of people will tell you, oh, I taste lemongrass and I taste, this. But if you've never tasted lemongrass before, you're not going to know what lemongrass tastes like. You're not going to taste that. it is very, very much individual, your taste, and no one should ever tell you that you're tasting it the wrong way, right? Basically, what you're doing when you're tasting wine is your mind